Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program Spiritism Inspiring Lives. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us the member of the Spiritist Psychological Society, Cristiane Pereira, who will be focused on the theme, the worldly person. But before we start and before we hand it over to her, I would kindly invite everyone for us to initiate this process, this moment, with some exercises of learning to look within ourselves. For those who may choose to close your eyes, please feel free to do so that we can learn to pay attention to our breathing, observing ourselves, calming our minds and hearts. Starting also to observe ourselves as essentially beings of love, of goodness, immortal beings as we all are, ourselves and all of those who may be with us in the spiritual world, for this unique, special moment of reflections, helping us to understand a bit more about ourselves, about our existences, about our lives, through the laws of reincarnation. As we are immortal beings, we continue to evolve through different existences. For us who are reincarnated right now in a new body, in the material world, learning to transcend as the major goal through our reincarnation is to evolve, is to progress, starting within our ideas, our understandings, renewing them whenever necessary, adjusting them where is needed, and always being open and welcoming for new ideas, as we all know that we still have plenty to learn, and do this in a loving way, gradually, according to our own unique way of being, and as unique individuals, unique beings, essentially of love, who are here in order to learn to love through the love of the Creator of everything and everyone. We start this moment expressing our gratitude for everything that has been granted to us, for us to be here together as brothers and sisters in humanity, blessed by our dear friends in the Spirit, the Spirit's benefactors who are with us right now. And in that way, saying thank you, we start this meeting today. Welcome everyone once more, even those who later on maybe join the videos which will be available in our YouTube and Facebook pages. And also welcome Cristiane to be, or Chris, as is more personal, with us. And in that way, as I mentioned previously, Chris will be presenting the theme of her reflections, of her studies, focus on the worldly person. And in that way, Chris, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Really happy to be here to reflect upon the worldly person. Our reflection has been based on the resources on the next slide, where we see we got it from the Gospel according to Spiritism by Allan Kardec. Also, the book called, in Portuguese, Refúgio or Shelter by Chico Xavier, dictated by the Spirit Emmanuel. And also from the book called Words of Eternal Life from Chico Xavier, dictated by the Spirit Emmanuel as well. Moving on. One more, please. So this chapter 17 in the Gospel according to Spiritism is central because it explores what it really means to strive for moral and spiritual perfection in our daily lives. So on the slides, we can see the points where Kardec will talk about in the chapter 17. So we have the characteristics of perfection. In summary, we will see the efforts of overcome selfishness and pride, practicing humility, charity, and love in daily life. We will see a little bit about the good person, where we will find all qualities that distinguish a good person. The good spiritist, where we will understand how to recognize one by their sincere effort at inner transformation, proving Spiritism's value through moral progress and virtuous conduct. We also see the parable of the sower, which will show us different categories of spiritists. And then on this chapter, we will have the instructions from the spirits, and each one given by the good spirits. We will find duty, virtue, those who are superior and those who are inferior, the worldly person, and look after body and spirit. So together, these elements, they form a roadmap for how we can progress and live closer to the ideal of being perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect. Moving on, the worldly person. So according to Spiritism, the worldly person is a spirit temporarily in a physical body to learn, grow, and work towards moral perfection through reincarnation, facing trials, and using free will to develop charity and wisdom. The physical world is a privileged place for spiritual progress, and true salvation comes through practicing love and charity towards others in thought, word, and deed. Moving on. Now we will look at the passage from the chapter 17, and I will read it in parts, and together we will reflect on its meaning and how we can apply in our lives. So starting with the worldly person, a sentiment of pity should always animate the hearts of those who gather together under the eye of the Lord, imploring the assistance of the good spirits. Therefore, purify your hearts. Do not allow yourselves to be perturbed by futile and mundane thoughts. Lift up your spirits towards those you are calling to, so they, having encountered favorable dispositions in you, may launch a profusion of seeds which should germinate in your hearts and produce the fruits of charity and justice. So now let's reflect in parts. So coming to the next slide. When they say purify your heart, is an invitation to look inward, to focus on our inner self rather than external appearances or actions. And as the Spirit Emmanuel said on the message entitled Shelter, he says, do not cling solely to the imperatives of outward purity. Appearance is often contrast and illusion. There are those who dress in spotless linen while carrying mud in their conscience. There are judges with hand properly washed, whose spirit is a thicket of cruel corruption. The external adornment of life is not enough to solve the world's problems. Next one. Victorious beauty in the physical realm is often nothing more than a mask that time tears away and consumes. Wearing perfect clothes can often just be a golden cover for selfish interests. Jesus reminded us that true purity is in the heart, and that's what we should focus on first. A pure heart makes our eyes and ears clear so we can only see and hear what is good around us. From a clean heart comes a light that guides the mind, lifting our thoughts and helping us shape the destiny we are meant to live. This is such a beautiful message from Emmanuel. In a nutshell, what a purify your hearts means. So moving on to the next slide. When the line that says, "Do not allow yourselves to be perturbed by futile and mundane thoughts," this points to the discipline of the mind. But first of all, what futile thoughts means? They are superficial, they are unproductive or empty ideas, worries about appearances, gossip, vanity. So this kind of thoughts, they waste mental energy without building anything positive. And mundane thoughts, they are thoughts tied only to material concerns, desires, or passions, like excessive attachment to money, status, pleasures. And moving on, when we give too much room to this kind of thoughts, our mind becomes restless and distracted, making it harder to connect with our spiritual purpose, perceive the influence of good spirits, strengthen inner peace and moral progress. Spiritism encourages us to train our mind towards constructive, elevated, and charitable reflections, since thought is a creative force that shapes our spiritual environment and even attracts influence, good or bad, depending on its nature. Still with that reflection, when we moving on to the next slide, when there is a line that says, "Lift up your spirits towards those you are calling to." So when we pray, meditate, or ask for help from God, Jesus, or good spirits, we must elevate our inner state with sincerity, humility, and openness. In Spiritism, prayer is not about words, but about tuning our heart and mind to higher vibration. Good spirits can only help if we are receptive. If we are agitated or focus on mundane distractions, it is like trying to tune into a radio station full of static. The connection doesn't happen clearly. So the seeds are the inspirations, intuitions, and moral teachings that higher spirits send and can grow within us, leading to real changes in attitude and behavior. Moving on to the next slides, let's read a little bit more on the passage on chapter 17. "Do not think, however, that in constantly urging you to pray and meditate, we wish you to lead the life of a mystic, or that you should maintain yourselves outside the laws of the society in which you are condemned to reside. No, you must do well with the people of your time in the manner in which they live. Sacrifice necessities and even the frivolities of the day, but sacrifice them with a pure sentiment that can sanctify them." Let's reflect on this other part of the message. Moving on to the next slide. So, Spiritism does not call us to retreat into monasteries or live apart from society. Unlike traditions where holiness is linked to isolation, Spiritism teaches that real progress happens in daily life, among people, through relationships, work, family, and community. Spiritism values engagement with the world, not escape from it. Also, we are not asked to deny material needs or even the small pleasures. Instead, the teaching is to detach our heart from them, making responsible use of material life and being ready to sacrifice comforts when charity or duty calls. Moving on, the line says, you must deal with the people of your time in the manner in which they live. So, Spiritism teaches that we incarnate in a specific time, place, and society for a reason. And we should engage with the world we live in and the people around us and do not isolate ourselves. Using our interactions to elevate the spirits of others and inspire them to pursue higher moral and intellectual goals, using our presence and example to promote positive change. When I looked at this passage and specifically this sentence, I reflect on my experience by being Brazilian and living here in another country, and sometimes, I'm here in the UK, but with my mind and my heart in Brazil, and through the studies with studying the Spiritism, I kind of like reflects and made me realize that how important it is for me to literally, as it says in this line, that I must do it with the people of my time here where I am. So, and then kind of like really changes everything from my experience here in the UK. So it made me really embrace this opportunity to be here, and it made me a little bit more like open to relationships, friendships, and etc. So that's the invitation from the Spiritists, like when they say this. So moving on to the next slide. Sacrifice necessities and even the frivolities of the day, but sacrifice them with a pure sentiment that can sanctify them. So this teaching means that spiritual progress, which is the reason we incarnate, it's not about abandoning the world, but about living in it with detachment, balance, and charity. We are called to enjoy life responsibly, renounce when needed, and transform even simple sacrifices into acts of love that elevate the soul. So moving on, let's read another part of this passage where it says, you are called upon to be in contact with spirits of diverse natures and opposite characters. Do not enter into conflict with anyone with whom you may find yourself. Always be happy and content with the happiness which comes from a clear conscience and the contentment of one who will inherit heaven, and it's counting the days till they receive their inheritance. Let's reflect in parts. Moving on to the next slide. You are called upon to be in contact with spirits of diverse natures and opposite characters. So this has two layers of meaning. First one, incarnate life, our human relationships. Basically, we live surrounded by people. Even if we want it or not, we live surrounded by people with very different personalities, temperaments, moral levels, and intentions. This diversity is not random, it is part of our spiritual education. By interacting with others, whether they are kind, difficult, just, or unjust, we learn patience, tolerance, forgiveness, and charity. Moving on. The second layer is the discarnate life, the invisible influences. So beyond human contact, we are constantly under the influence of spirits. Some are benevolent, inspiring us good thoughts. Others are less advanced, selfish, or malicious, and may try to disturb us or feed our weaknesses. Spiritism calls this the law of affinity. Our mental and moral state attracts the type of spirits we come into contact with. Why is this important? So, moving on. Spiritism teaches that we cannot expect to live in isolation from these influences. Life itself, both seen and unseen, will confront us with contrasts. Our task is to develop discernment, welcoming good influences, resisting negative ones, always aiming to elevate our own thoughts so we tune in to higher spirits. Moving on. You are called upon to be in contact with spirits of diverse natures and opposite characters. This phrase means that both in daily life and in spiritual contact, we will naturally be exposed to a wide variety of beings, some uplifting, some challenging, and that diversity is necessary for our growth. Through vigilance, prayer, and moral effort, we learn to strengthen bonds with higher spirits and transform difficulties into opportunities for inner progress. I am sure we are all thinking about all those diverse characters we have in our lives. And even a little bit before our study, I was talking to Evanise about, my own relationships with my son and the challenges now with the age that he is. And all of this, it's an invitation for me actually to learn and develop my patience, my love, my charity. So let's carry on with our reflection. So moving on to the next slide. So how this happens in everyday life. So based on what the Spirit says to us, that we are called upon to be in contact with spirits of diverse natures and opposite characters. So some practical examples. So how this happens in everyday life. At work. At work, we deal with colleagues of very different personalities. I'm sure you're already thinking of some of them. Some are cooperative, some may be even hostile. And these encounters are not random, they are opportunities to practice patience, respect, and fairness. By keeping balanced thoughts at work, we also avoid attracting lower spiritual influences that could intensify anger, pride, or gossip. In the family, how this happens. So, at home, there may be loved ones who are easy to live with, but also those who bring conflict or require tolerance. Spiritism teaches that family ties often reflect reunions from past lives meant for reconciliation and mutual learning. Contact with spirits of opposite characters often happens here as challenging relationships that invite forgiveness and love. And how this happens when we are alone? Well, even in silence, we are not isolated. Our thoughts attract spiritual influences. If we give in to vanity, resentment, or trivial worries, we open space for less evolved spirits who vibrate on that same wavelength. But if we lift our minds to gratitude, prayer, or constructive ideas, we attract higher spirits who inspire peace, courage, and clarity. So these contrasts in our everyday life, they are essential for growth because they give us the chance to strengthen our virtues and choose which influences we want to welcome. Moving on. Do not enter into conflict with anyone with whom you may find yourself. So, this is not about avoiding disagreements at any cost, but about avoiding hostility, resentment, and unnecessary arguments. Disagreements are natural as we are constantly meeting people with different temperaments, opinions, and even levels of spiritual maturity. But conflicts such as anger, offense, revenge, harms both sides and attracts lower spiritual influences. When we remain calm, patient, and respectful, we create harmony around us. And this make us receptive to good inspirations, while anger and conflict often open space for disturbing thoughts and influences. Moving on. Not entering into conflict means exercising tolerance, forgiveness, and empathy. It is also better to step back, stay silent, or respond with kindness than to feel discord. This teaching invites us to cultivate peace and avoid useless fights. We can disagree without hostility, and by refusing conflict, we preserve our inner balance, we attract good spirits, and we turn daily encounters, even with difficult people, into opportunities for spiritual growth. Moving on. The other line of the passage that says, always be happy and content with the happiness which comes from a clear conscience and the contentment of one who will inherit heaven, and it's counting the days till they receive their inheritance. So, true happiness is not about material possessions, status, or temporary pleasures. A clear conscience, living honestly, practicing charity, avoiding harm, brings an inner peace that nothing external can take away. And this is the kind of happiness Spiritism calls durable, because it does not depend on circumstances, but on our moral state. And heaven, in the Spiritist terms, does not mean a static place of eternal rest. No, it refers to higher spiritual states, the condition of spirits who progress towards purity, love, and wisdom. Moving on. The inheritance is not given arbitrarily. It is the natural result of effort, growth, and the good we cultivate. So, this passage encourages us to live joyfully, knowing that every small step in goodness builds our future happiness in the spirit world. Just as someone awaiting good inheritance feels calm and secure, we too can face life's difficulties with serenity. Trials and challenges may come, but the spirit who trusts in divine justice knows that they are temporary, and that the reward of peace and spiritual progress is certain. And be truly happy by keeping our conscience clear, for this is the joy that endures. Live with the serene confidence of one who knows that through effort and faith, they are preparing themselves for higher spiritual life, the true inheritance of the soul. Moving on. So let's read another part of the passage of the worldly person. Virtue does not consist of having a severe and gloomy appearance, or in repelling the pleasures that the human condition permits. It is sufficient to refer all your acts to God, who gave you your life. It is enough that at the commencement and at the end of each task, you lift up your thoughts to the Creator, asking Him with a heartfelt impulse for His protection in order to execute the work, or His blessing on its termination. On doing anything at all, take your thoughts up to that supreme source. Do nothing without first thinking of God, so that this thought may come to purify and sanctify your acts. Let's reflect in parts. Moving on. Spiritism teaches that true virtue is inner, not outer, as we already said that through this reflection. But what I found really interesting in this part is the spirits, they say that it's not about looking rigid or sad to prove, your holiness, nor it is about rejecting every natural joy of life, like friendship, family, beauty, leisure. But what matters is balance, detachment, and intention. Pleasures are not sins when enjoyed in moderation and with gratitude. If we dedicate our actions to God through love, honesty, and service, even ordinary tasks gain a spiritual value. The key is to make every act of our daily life, such as working, eating, resting, serving, a chance to elevate the soul. And I always think about what we discuss sometimes on our studies, where Evanise always says, like, if I really want to, I can make washing the dishes a chance to elevate my soul. I can be there in a state of true happiness because I am serving. I'm serving my family. I'm serving myself. I'm serving God. When I am saying a prayer, this is a moment as well for me to elevate my soul. So every single opportunity, we do not really have to think big. It's literally every small action on our daily life. It is an opportunity for us to really evolve our virtues. So moving on. In this passage, the Spirit says, at the commencement and at the end of each task, you lift up your thoughts to the Creator. This is about prayer and mindfulness. Not long, formal prayers, but short, sincere impulses of the heart. And these moments align our mind with higher spirits and keep us spiritually protected. A few examples of daily practice to lift our thoughts to God. So let's say before beginning a task, which could be work, study, cooking, a meeting, etc. We can pause for just 5-10 seconds, and inwardly we say something like, God, help me to do this with love and honesty. Or, good spirits, inspire me to act with kindness and patience. And this is just a few examples. And at the end of the task, we can say in thought, thank you, God, for this opportunity. Or bless this work so it may be useful and good. Can we see it's simple, but sincere. This is what matters. So moving on to the next slide. Do nothing without first thinking of God, so that this thought may come to purify and sanctify your acts. Remembering God before acting brings clarity and purity to our choices. And this is about elevating intention. It helps us avoid actions rooted in selfishness, pride, or harm. Even simple acts are sanctified because they are done with awareness and connection to the divine. So let's remember that the next time we need to do something, we can do that as an experiment just to see how we feel. Just like 5-10 seconds before we ask, for protection, and we see how we feel about it. So moving on, let's read another part of the passage, the worldly person. Perfection, as Christ said, can only be found in the practice of unlimited charity. Since the duties of charity cover all social positions, from the lowliest to the most elevated, the person who lives a life of isolation by choice will have no means of exercising charity. It is only by being in contact with one's fellow creatures in painful battle that we are able to find occasion to practice it. The one who isolates himself, therefore, is entirely deprived of the most powerful means of perfecting themselves. In only having to think of oneself, life becomes that of a selfish person. And see chapter 5, item 26. We can all read that later on. But let's reflect on this part. Moving on. When the Spirit says perfection, as Christ said, can only be found in the practice of unlimited charity, since the duties of charity cover all social positions from the lowliest to the most elevated, they are saying that moral perfection is not about knowledge, wealth, or power, but about how much love we put into our actions. Charity in the Spiritism, it's not only material help, like giving food, money, or shelter. And true charity includes benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. Unlimited charity means extending love and comparison to all without distinction of race, class, religion, or behavior. Moving on. Every person, no matter their role in society, has opportunities to practice charity daily in words, in attitudes, and in forgiveness. Perfection is not about withdrawing from the world, but about living charity without limits. It is through this universal law of love that we advance toward true spiritual perfection. Allan Kardec writes in the Gospel according to Spiritism on chapter 15, entitled, "Without charity, there is no salvation." He says, charity, according to Jesus, commands indulgence towards one another's imperfections, forgiveness of offenses, and benevolence towards all. Moving on. How can we practice charity in our everyday acts? So, a few examples here. In words, we can speak kindly, avoid gossip or criticism. We can offer encouragement or praise when someone does well. We can use gentle words when correcting mistakes. A few examples related to attitude and behavior. We can listen attentively to someone in distress, offering empathy rather than advice, unless requested. We can practice patience in traffic, queues, or crowded places. We can help someone struggling without expecting anything in return. The next slide. We can practice charity in thoughts and minds when we forgive those who offend us, hold no grudges, when we cultivate goodwill, even towards difficult people, when we reflect on others' needs and challenges, sending them positive energy or silent prayer. Charity in our daily responsibilities, when we choose to do our work or study consciously, performing duties well is a form of service. We can share knowledge or skills to help others succeed. We can avoid harming anyone through laziness, carelessness, or selfishness. And charity in small material acts. We can give what we can, even a little food, clothing, books, or time. We can volunteer in community. We can support causes that promote education, health, or social well being. So, as we can see, charity is universal, unlimited, and accessible to all. Even small daily acts performed with love and sincerity contribute to moral progress and moves us closer to the perfection Jesus spoke about. And moving on to the last part of the passage. However, do not imagine that in order to be in constant contact with us, to live under the watchful eye of God, you must wear a hair shirt and cover yourselves with ashes. No, no, and yet again, no. Be happy within the picture of human needs, but in this happiness, never allow a thought or an act which could offend God or cause a shadow to fall upon the face of those who love you or direct you. God is love, and he blesses all who sanctify their own. A Protecting Spirit, Bordeaux, 1863. So I had to research what hair shirt means or cover yourselves in ashes because I didn't know. And basically, those practices, as mentioned by the spirit, like wearing hair shirts or cover oneself with ashes, were historically symbols of penance or self mortification in some religious traditions. Hair shirts are garments made from rough animal hair, usually goats, and they used to worn as a top or under a shirt and against the skin, so the coarse hair will rub and scratch the wearer, the person wearing it. And this discomfort serves as both an act of penitence and a constant reminder of faith, so as to better avoid the temptation to sin. Some hair shirts even included bits of spiked metal to inflict pain and injury of those wearing it. We do not need to adopt harsh or painful practices to be spiritually connected. True spirituality is expressed in daily life through thought, intention, and action, guided by love, charity, and awareness of God's presence. External suffering or showy penance does not make the soul closer to the divine. Inner purity does. So, moving on, this passage is emphasizing inner spirituality over external displays of austerity. As I've said, we don't need to physically punish ourselves, deny all comfort, or live in gloom to be spiritually connected, because true connection comes from the heart. God and good spirits, they care about the purity of our intentions, thoughts, and actions, not outward appearances. Living with sincerity, charity, and moral awareness is what keeps us constant contact with higher spiritual forces. Spiritual progress comes from living ethically and with love, not by self denial or extreme austerity. Moving on. Be happy within the picture of human needs, but in this happiness, never allow a thought or an act which could offend God or cause a shadow to fall upon the face of those who love you or direct you. Spiritism teaches that we can and should enjoy natural joys of life: food, family, work, friendships, leisure, all within moderation. Happiness is not found by rejecting life's needs or pleasures, but by living them with balance and gratitude. Happiness should not come at the expense of love, integrity, or divine law. Consider the impact of our actions on others, like our family, friends, or anyone connected to us. Avoid thoughts or actions that are selfish, harmful, or unjust. Moving on. God is love, and he blesses all who sanctify their own. Sanctify your own, according to Spiritism, means elevating your thoughts, intentions, and actions. By living ethically with love, even ordinary life becomes blessed. Happiness that respects God's law and benefits others is true and not a fleeting pleasure. Be joyful and grateful for life's natural blessings. Let your joy be guided by love, justice, and respect for God and others. True happiness comes from living morally and spiritually, sanctifying your own life through thoughts, intentions, and acts. Moving on. To conclude our reflections, I'd like to share a passage from Emmanuel through Chico Xavier that beautifully summarizes today's message of love, duty, and perfection through daily effort. This message is called Esteem, from the book Words from Eternal Life. Um, Giving thanks always for all things in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, says Paul. The universe is a stream of love in ceaseless motion. Do not interrupt its vibrations flow. In this sense, remember that no one is so burdened by duties that he cannot, from time to time, raise his eyes or say a phrase as a sign of gratitude. Consider your works of obligation as sacred, but do not forget the minute of dedication to others. Next, parents do not discuss your affection, yet they will multiply their strength with your gesture of understanding. The children take note of your kindness, yet they will experience new encouragement from your generous smile. Your colleagues know your solidarity, but they will be blessed with renewing energy when they see the reaffirmation of your spontaneity. The companions recognize your friendship, but they will be filled with holy stimuli when they hear your fraternal message. No one can evaluate the importance of small donations. A prayer, an affectionate greeting, a flower, or a friendly note can extinguish a long fire or discord. One second. Sorry. So, a prayer, an affectionate greeting, a flower, or a friendly note can extinguish a long fire of discord or dispel rocks of shadow. Moving on. We are not referring here to praise, which spoils it, or flattery, which poisons it. We talk about friendship and gratitude, which value the work and nourish the good. No matter how hard the road can be, learn to smile and bless, so joy may be ahead, encouraging the hearts and hands that operate the expansion of the infinite goodness. God Himself is never so excessively busy that He does not remember to sustain the sun, to warm in His name the last worm in the last abyssal recesses. So, this message reminds us that even in the middle of our obligations, we can always cultivate gratitude, charity, and love. These small daily gestures are the seeds of perfection that Jesus invited us to develop. The message of the worldly person shows us that even while living in the material world, we can keep our hearts lifted, focus on what truly matters, and let charity and love guide our actions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was a pleasure to learn also together and reflecting. And as we're coming to the end of our time in here, or moments of enrichment, spiritually speaking, let's join us together and practice charity through prayer. As we are finalizing this meeting, let's give thanks to God, the Creator, the Father of all of us, for everything that He granted to us in this existence and many existences, for the possibility to be here together, to be reflecting, to be studying. Also praying, which is the expression of love towards each one of us, so that we can gradually also open our hearts, which means our emotion dimension, and perceiving on the feeling level that we are all brothers and sisters in humanity. Praying for all of those who may be suffering on earth, right now in this moment. Those who are under wars, those who are struggling, loneliness, depression. We also pray, dear Lord, for all of those that perhaps may be with suicidal thoughts, and ask you that you may bless them all with your divine love, soothing their hearts and their minds. We also pray for all the families on earth, asking that you may bless every one of them, enlighten the homes and those residents, so that we all can also learn from each other and with others, so that we grow in practicing more charity within ourselves as presented today. We also pray, dear Lord, that you may bless all of those who are departing from earth, returning to the spiritual world as life continues, asking you that you may involve them with your divine peace. Also, at the same time, we pray and ask you that you may also bless all of those who are reincarnating on earth, coming back to the school earth where we are. At the same time, we also, through our own feelings, through this moment of prayers, may also communicate to them that we are welcoming them, knowing that life continues here or there, on earth or beyond, and we are coming and going as learners of ourselves within the divine laws that govern us all. We also pray, dear Lord, for all of those who may be in hospitals, especially those in more grave situations. May you bless them with your peace and soothe their hearts as they go through the temporary experiences, sometimes close to free themselves from the physical body. May your peace be with them. And we come back here, giving thanks once more for this unique and special moment, with our hearts full of gratitude when we say thank you. We conclude this meeting today. So be it. And in that way, we say thank you once more, Chris, for you and all of those who may be with us, have been with us, for those who may be joining us later on, and hope to see you soon in future occasions. All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.